Well. This episode of On the Grind, folks, is going to be a little heavy, to say the least, because holy crap, people, can we calm down for 5 seconds? I mean, we turn around and then we come back and then suddenly grape is on the menu. Yeah, this is going to be kind of a dark episode in that regard, because we have a discussion about whether or not certain such things can be in Star Wars, because apparently we're doing that with Andor now. We're going to be talking about how a Vice media journalist who fetishizes about grape is going after certain Vtubers, specifically an agency. And at the very least, Serena gets to talk about a cartoon that she just watched. So there's that going for us, I guess.
Which hopefully doesn't have as much rape as the rest of the topics.
Yeah.
I would hope.
No, it has a lot of violence, though.
Ooh, hold on. I can love violence.
Okay, violence is okay.
Yeah. But regardless, folks, this is going to be interesting, to say the least. But if nothing else, we will try to make funny jokes and come up with interesting discussions. So, let's go ahead and get started. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to another episode of On the Grind. Alright. So to get us rolling, Serena, tell us about Gaslight District.
Gaslight District is...
I have a quick question, actually, real fast. Is it down the street from Gatekeep Boulevard and Girl Boss Street?
No.
Poor Serena having to deal with us all the time. Sorry, I felt like making a Gaslight Gatekeep Girl Boss joke, so.
It's a dark fantasy animation from the people from Glitch Studios, the people who are in charge of a well-known cartoon called The Amazing Digital Circus.
Okay, so decent. What's the word? Decent creator so far.
Yes. So it takes place in a world that's a post-apocalyptic world where people, undead called the Rotlings, dwell within a place called Gaslight District. This series is a gothic crime drama about an undead crime family. So in this world, people in this world are immortal. They bleed purple blood. They can never die, but in not being able to die, they basically have to find other ways to stimulate themselves. The series basically tells you straight up, people in this world are highly hedonistic.
Okay,
because
this is sounding very Eldar all of a sudden.
Can I get Micah? Can I finish?
No,
we gotta make jokes. Jokes are always fun.
I have opinions that cannot wait.
Yes.
No, they're constantly fighting. They're constantly eating. They don't show anything sexual because I don't think anything sexual happens in this world. It's really just like dark and depressing. Basically, this world is being overseen by an eldritch being called the Black Stone. And it might be the reason behind why people cannot die. So we get introduced to our 4 or 5 characters. Melkany, who is the main character we follow, who is the only girl within the this crime family. I forgot what they were called. Oh crap! I forgot what they were called. But yeah, there's Ken the Butcher, Redhead, who is Ken the Butcher is basically a zombie dude who has a lural knife in his head. Like it's literally like implanted in his head. You got Jack, who is basically a lazy lackey who tries to like rip Ken off and steal from him. sometimes, or try to look for the easy way. He's basically the Eddie. If you ever watch Eddie, he's basically the Eddie character, trying to do things quick and easy and to his benefit. And then you got Brett Hood, who is this weird mutant dude with a literal bread for a head, who eats other rotlings. He's a mutant cannibal. And then you got Melkany, who is the only human in this entire city of undead people. Now, the interesting thing is this world's lore and mythology, because this world takes a lot of inspiration from Lovecraft, Dante's Inferno, and Paradise Lost, but it's like only in name only.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take a lot from like the Dante Alighieri's famous works, because you got heaven and hell, but they're not. But they're like very like dark versions of the heaven and hell. Basically, hell is this frozen wasteland that Ken and some Rotlings fear going, because it's just never-ending suffering. Because keep in mind, everybody, with the exception of Mel, is immortal.
Mm-hmm.
And
That would be.
And then you got the angels, who are called virtues. So you got the cardinal virtues in Christianity. Like you got diligence. We only see two of them. We see diligence and temperance.
Mm-hmm.
Diligence is voiced by Michael Kovac, who is literally in fucking everything.
Fucking everything, now that you mention it.
Yeah, he was in Has Been. He was in Amazing Digital Circus, and now he's in this. So there's a prophecy that a human born from an angel's egg would bring calamity to the Gaslight District. Basically, it will bring an end to the people's immortality. And the people, the Rotlings, the citizens of this city, are indoctrinated to believe that this human is basically from their perspective, the human is the Antichrist. The human is their destruction. So they really want to kill any human that's potentially born from the angel's egg. In comes Mel. The first couple of minutes of the series starts with the crime family, try to chase down one of their who finds out that Mel is human, because unlike everybody else, Mel bleeds black blood. Everybody in the Gaslight District bleeds purple blood.
Blood racism. Okay, cool.
Which immediately tells him she's human and she's going to like try to kill him all. So they basically try to get this dude before he can blab to anybody about Mel's true nature. They basically have to resort to they basically catch up to this dude. This is one like chase sequence in the beginning of the series. They catch up to the dude. They corner him. They basically cement him, which basically tying his feet to cement and basically throwing to the bottom of the ocean, where he'll basically he won't die because everybody in this entire city is immortal. So he'll basically be internally drowning.
Oh, that's terrible. Frick, that reminds me of like this one Highlander episode. Dude like died constantly because he was exiled on a boat. Since he was a Highlander or one of those immortals, he kept coming back and starved to death. Came back alive, starved to death.
Yeah, it's basically like that, but on steroids here.
Ugh.
So you learn. So after they cement the dude, they go back to working in their little diner, their makeshift diner. Mel basically wants to. She gets scolded by Ken, who is her. Basically, he's her adopted father. He's the one who raised her. She basically gets scolded by Mel for letting her secret get out so many times. Because keep in mind, this is not the first instance. Someone found out Mel was human. This is one of several instances. And every time they have to capture the person and cement them. There's a part in the series, later on in the series, where you just see a bunch of Rotlings drowning at the bottom of a lake. Also, there's a scene where the Rotling that they're hunting down literally gets shot in the head, is bleeding purple blood, and he's just fine. Because, again, everybody is immortal, with the exception of Mel. So Mel comes up with a plan to kind of, like, trick everybody, quote-unquote, gaslight the entire town into thinking that they killed the human by going to heaven and trying to steal the angel's egg from the mother crow, or the angel mother. Like, the angels have this very crow-like design to them.
Mm-hmm.
Which I find, like, crows/vultures. Which I just find an interesting design for them. So Mel comes up with a plan. They can, like, kidnap the angel's egg, bring it back to the Gaslight District, and just smash the egg in front of everybody. They can quell any suspicion of a human, of her being human, or potentially might be a human among them. Basically, she's trying to save herself and keep her secret. Ken's not really sure because he thinks this is way too risky for her. But he eventually comes around thanks to Mel's prodding. So Mel, with the help of Breadhead, Ken, and Jack, make a plan to go to Paradise Lost, which is kind of like this gated... It's basically this gate that keeps the Gaslight District, that separates the Gaslight District and heaven from each other, and is heavily guarded by the virtue of Diligence, who has probably one of the most creepiest design, because he's basically a brain in a robot body, and he treats his not superiors, his subordinates like shit. Because as they check to see what the car, because it's Jack driving the truck with cargo in it. Mel and Breadhead and Ken are kind of hiding under a floorboard so they don't get caught. And when one of the subordinates, and when not subordinates, okay, so when Diligence is looking around to see if anything suspicious or ordinary, he's very focused on the cardboard. He's starting to get suspicious of it. One of the subordinates of his comes into his face, basically tell him, "Oh, everything's okay, sir." Diligence grabs the dude and basically throws him all the way across the miles across into a spiked fence, impaling the dude. Everyone just looking like shit. Yeah, he didn't like that. But he ultimately lets everybody... I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what happened. He basically lets them go on ahead to heaven. And we see heaven as this really weird, almost Babel-like fortress. So Mel starts putting her plan into action to distract the guards, using Breadhead to create like a... I forgot what it was, an angel storm? Yeah, it was an angel storm that basically causes the crows to kind of wig out and start attacking him, thus keeping everybody's focus somewhere else. Jack decides to go kill one of the security that's watching the cameras, who turns out to be an old friend that knew him, that Jack doesn't like particularly. Jack tries to kill him. Well, tries, because again, everybody's immortal except for Mel, so death is more of an inconvenience. Ken decides to pick a fight with the cardinal virtue of temperance, who is the only other person who is aware of Mel's true nature. They seem to have like a history with one another, because we do see a picture of Temperance with a baby Mel. They haven't really explained that Mel's relationship with with this heaven place, other than she was born from the angel's egg at some point. So Ken decides to pick a fight. So it's a really intense and brutal fight where he basically rips the brain out of Temperance's robot body and just consumes it at the end of the fight. While Mel decides to go up the ladder to the doorway where the angel's egg is being held. She gets confronted by the crow mother, or the angel mother. who basically tells her that you can't run away from destiny. Again, reinforcing that prophecy that she will inevitably bring an end to the Gaslight District. Or at least that's what seems to be applied. A fight ensues. Something happens where one of the guards that Jack tries to kill resurrects and lets everybody basically sounds the alarm, like everybody knows intruders within the fortress, and now they gotta get the heck out of Dodge. Mel luckily was able to grab the Angel's egg, but is heavily injured in the process, where Ken basically has to take her into the truck that they came in. As they're leaving, they're being chased by the Angel Storm as well as Diligence, who tries to basically kill Ken and is completely ignoring and to try to retrieve the egg. He's completely ignoring Mel and doesn't even notice that Mel literally is bleeding black blood. But Ken is able to overpower him just barely and get back to the Gaslight District. So once they get back to the Gaslight District, they hold a ceremony about to destroy the Angel's egg with the human inside, because this world functions a little bit differently than our world. Humans aren't born from two humans conceiving; they're born from an angel's egg, from the angel mother. So it's a different mythology. As Mel is about to destroy the angel's egg, she starts to have misgivings, because keep in mind she's taking a human life. She's never taken a human life before. She's never had to because she had to kill rotlings, and they're different from humans because they're immortal beings. But this is a being that can never come back. This is a being that potentially is like her. So she has a moment of hesitation, which kind of results in the egg starting to crack open. It starts something starts to emerge from it. Turns out what emerges from it is not a human, but another crow angel creature. And everyone sees that. Everybody basically gets pissed off at them for lying, like Mel and her crime family for lying to them that the egg contained a human when it really didn't. So the pilot ends with them basically having to deal with the consequences of tricking their entire town and getting them all riled up over the ceremony of killing the human that will potentially bring their downfall. Nobody has any idea that the human is actually Mel. The human was already born 1,000 years. They say that every 1,000 years a human is born from the angel's egg, meaning that it's way too early for another human to be born. So yeah, it kind of sets up this very interesting gothic dark fantasy of a human, a mortal being living amongst immortal beings.
And being prophesized to be the reason why they're no longer immortal beings.
Yeah.
So, how's the animation look?
The animation is basically Tim Burton if it was on drugs.
You mean on more drugs?
It is even more drugs, yeah. It's very high. It's very high octane. It's very quick, especially when it comes to the action scenes.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you recommend?
Yes, I would heavily recommend this series. Though it's only a pilot, so I don't know if this has already broken 11 million views in under a week, in just a week.
That's not bad, I guess. Goddamn, Jesus! Especially considering the pedigree that it's the Digital Circus guys doing this.
Yeah. Oh, and the entity that's overlooking the Gaslight District is called the Black Hand, which is this eldritch god / Satan figure. Because we don't know if there's a god or a devil in this world. We just know that there's a heaven and hell realm, that exists. But it could be just like a unique twist on that very concept, because we know that the angels don't exactly look like angels, and we haven't seen any demons yet. We just seen undead people.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically what would Hazbin Hotel, but was written good, would look like.
Oh, that's mean, but
Because
true.
unlike Hazbin Hotel, it actually does something different and unique with the whole heaven and hell concept, and doesn't rely on cursing nonstop to tell a joke. There are some like very grim and comedic moments throughout Gaslight District. It doesn't rely on like sexual humor or anything like that, because again, these people are undead. They just eat and consume, and that's it.
That's very Eldar inspired. I like that.
My only issue is the fast pace and the lore. I just wish that we gotten. I know this is a pilot and everything, but I just wish certain things was explained a bit better. And they calmed down at certain points during the. They used the more quieter moments to kind of explain more of this world, and like what happened. Why is it necessary for Mel to die? Why are humans such a threat? What's this whole deal with heaven and hell? Why did the angels look the way that they do? Why is everybody immortal? Where does the mortality come from? Is heaven implied that mortality comes from this eldritch creature?
Well, it sounds interesting. And there's only all that comes from one episode.
Yeah,
Oh, that's one episode. Oy.
That's a
Very dense episode.
That's a hell of a fucking episode. Not gonna lie. But then again, it is the digital circus guys. So I mean, if you look at what they've been done with, like, what, 2-3 episodes? I don't know how many.
Digital Circus has like 7-8 episodes out yet now. But yeah, it's one of their big series. And I think they're having another series called Knights of Guinevere. I think it's being done by the same people. I could be wrong. But that one is supposed to be like a sci-fi thriller about robots essentially going. The trailer kind of implies that the robots are going insane, but they're mentally stuck in this dream reality, meaning that they're literally like crashing out, but their mind is somewhere else.
Interesting. Well, I might have to look at this at some point. Get a good view.
Yeah, it has a lot of good reviews. A lot of people have watched it and said good things about it. Basically, if you want something that takes inspiration from Dante's Alighieri's Inferno, but with an eldritch twist, I highly recommend Gaslight District.
Fair enough.
I really did like the original Dante's Inferno. It's kind of hard to follow if you're not used to the classical English that it had to be translated into, but
it is super fascinating, especially when you understand the history that all the people that Dante meets in hell are real people from his life that he hated.
Oh yeah, it's a political hit piece.
It's fan fiction of his life, dude. It's fan fiction of his life.
Fan fiction, the first fan fiction to ever exist.
Dante logs into his DeviantArt account to post the next chapter.
Oh man!
But yeah, I enjoy seeing new indie animations that actually put effort into their writing, and it's not just another Has-Been Hotel busy pop schlock you see for the upteen 'th time.
Now, to answer your question earlier about, what's going on with, heaven and hell, mankind knew they couldn't change society, and that's why instead of reflecting on themselves, they blamed the beasts.
Oh, Lord.
Heaven or hell, let's rock!
Just don't ask us what we did to Gold Lewis.
Oh, God.
But anyway. Anyway. Let's move on to our topics of the week. So, rape in Star Wars.
I mean,
I don't.
Why are we here?
Yeah,
right?
just to suffer. It's. Or were you going red versus blue with that one?
Honestly, like, why are we here talking about, this in Star Wars of all things? Because
right?
of all the things that doesn't belong in Star Wars, I would think this would be at the top of the list. I mean, there are bad guys in Star Wars. Like, I have no doubt in my mind stuff like this is happening in the Star Wars universe, but we don't need to see it to know it's there.
Implied. Because
Well,
it's never really the point of.
Let's give a little context to this. So for those of you who are playing the home game, in the new episode, we get a second season of the show Andor, which everyone that has watched it, that it doesn't have like a mad hate boner for Disney Star Wars, has told me that it is surprisingly interesting. The first season was, at the very least, and
Yeah.
that's cool. The thing is, the second season came out, and there's been a bit of controversy in regards to a character in it being where there's an attempted sexual assault from an Imperial officer.
Which, I mean, considering it's an Imperial officer, it's not out of character.
They are
kind
scum.
of is because they're still decorum.
Yeah, but they're Imperials. Has the Empire ever at any point really given you the impression that there's decorum that they actually stick to there outside of their really fancy uniforms?
Not really.
Yeah, you do your job and you do it well, or Vader fucking kills you with his pimp hand.
Assuming Vader is there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
even then, even
Bro,
like-
we both know Vader don't have to be there to kill you for not doing your job right. That's
True, but he does at
literally a
least
plot
have to
point
have
in
his
Empire.
He does kind of have to have his eyes on you, though.
yeah, and plus, even if something like rape was happening, Vader wouldn't care all that much. He would just be annoyed and pissed off at you guys being a nuisance towards him.
Yeah, because
It depends on the
if you
situation
remember,
because his background.
we have to keep in mind this is around Rogue One. So around Rogue One, Vader was in his angry tank more often than not.
Oh, right. Yeah. He just meditates
Like-
and tries not to scream loudly.
Yeah, because if you remember, like when he shows up initially in Rogue One, they had to fish him out of his angry tank. For those who don't know what that means, Vader is in constant pain from the injuries that he suffered on Mustafar, and because of the dark side of the Force, they don't properly heal. So he will literally sleep in a tank full of Bacta, which is the same substance that they put Luke in after they found him on in Empire Strikes Back, to let him heal up after he basically got stuffed in a tauntaun overnight. So that's his angry tank, because it's for some reason the Bacta is very red. So, but regardless,
I could just.
yeah, Vader's. I think a lot of people don't really see Vader's an attack dog. He doesn't really have a whole lot of power. which is kind of like the tragedy of him in a sense. He does all the shit that he does under the impression that Palpatine is going to give him what he wants, and then not only does he not get it, he thinks his kids are dead. He knows his wife is dead, and he's stuck as a robot for the rest of his life. Well, a cyborg, but he didn't
Close
really,
to.
He was not that
really
active
happy.
during this point of the Empire. Like, the most active he was just after becoming Darth Vader, and then after around the time of the Death Star.
Of course, that all depends on continuity, which that's in the new
Well, I'm
Disney
going off
timeline
Disney's
that is
continuity.
true. Because originally he had Starkiller.
Yeah, well, that's not
But-
canon anymore, though. I'm going off of
Yeah.
Disney stuff, which is what is canon right now. And
You can't just pull a Star Destroyer out of orbit and crash it into a planet. Starkiller could.
regardless, though,
But I mean,
so Vader at that point didn't really have he wasn't around that often. So because if I remember right, this happens at a work camp somewhere. And yeah, an Imperial officer using their power to do something vile like this, not really, it's not surprising. And on top of that, I'm very much vehemently against the idea that there hasn't been at least stuff like this implied in Star Wars. Because there is a sex trade of Twi'leks in the fiction. It's not blatantly stated, but it is hinted at in a couple of different points. It's hinted at in the Old Republic games, and it's also hinted at in Rebels, if I remember right. Because the Twi'lek lady talks about her people being enslaved because they are exotic, quote unquote. Well, anybody who's seen what happens in Jabba's palace, you get an idea of what's going on there. Plus, what do you think Jabba was going to do to Leia? So, it's not like this stuff doesn't happen, or it's never been implied. The question is, at least in my opinion, is it a smart idea to make it that blatant?
Front and center plot point.
I'm of the opinion that, because the one thing that I will say about this is that, because there's a whole Twitter thread, because there's people that jumped the gun and said that this has never happened in Star Wars ever. Which is, what that Star Wars girl said that, and Star Wars Theory said that. You are both wrong. It has. And there's several threads on Twitter that go over scenes within Star Wars that are still canon that imply it. There's implications in Clone Wars and stuff like that. It's one of those things, though, where it's done in a clever manner. Where if you were just a kid, you're like because the target audience of Star Wars is it's PG to PG. I think what's the highest rated has ever been PG-13. I think that's Revenge of the Sith.
Micah,
they're not. What's that?
Your robot.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't.
How about now?
But hopefully it's being recorded, because
Can you guys hear me now?
Should be. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. It was just a quick quick network thing. When did I start cutting out?
Oh, terrible. About maybe 2 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago, and then we were like, okay, what's going on?
10 seconds ago.
About that.
All right. Let me close out Steam and stuff to make sure, if they started downloading something, that they stop. And that should probably stop it from happening again. Okay, so I'll pick back up from whether or not this has been seen. Oh, I'll start with the age group thing. So the age group, from what I recall, the most that a Star Wars film like has ever been rated, I think, is PG-13. I think it's Revenge of the Sith. That was what that was rated. But I could be wrong. I might be remembering incorrectly. I'm getting old. But the target audience for Star Wars has always been sort of a all ages sort of audience. It's the kind of it's a kind of sci-fi movie that can have darker implications, but kids can still get it, and those darker implications aren't going to be something that they pick up on, but an adult will.
And then they can go, oh no.
Yeah, because that was basically the Jabba the Hutt thing.
Yeah, if you know, you know, but if you don't know, then it's just a bad guy being a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as a kid, I remember seeing the Leia Jabba the Hutt thing and just going, ugh, slug man, that's gross. See it again as an adult, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck was he planning to do with that tail? So, yeah. So the idea that there's not implications. Oh, and even in Knights of the Old Republic, they were going to sell Bastila as a slave. Take a wild guess what she's going to get used for. Like, come on. Like, yeah. So when it comes to, like, when Star Wars Theory and Anna said that, I'm like, clearly you guys missed some things here. Which, by the way, I'm not trying to be mean to either of them. It's just they're not wrong. They're not correct.
I seen the scene online, and it's like a little too violent, a little too graphic. It's more like what you see Casca go through pre-meeting Griffith, pre-Griffith, when she was still a teenager.
Oh, no.
Oh, that. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, well, no, with Cat, before she met the Griffith and the Hawks, I mean. When she was about to be
when the noble tries to do it to her, yeah.
That's what happens in the scene. It doesn't get too graphic. There's no penetration or anything like that. It's just like, you know, he's what he's about to do to her. It's very obvious.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that would be a lot more blatant than Star Wars has been up to this point in that regard. And that I think is where the argument lies. Because again, it's like, it's not like this has not been done before. Star Wars has some very dark moments to it. And at that point, you have to ask the question, is this really a smart idea for the overall tone that you want Star Wars to be? What do you guys think?
Now, from what I've heard about Andor, it's supposed to be a much more mature Star Wars series. So, here's the thing. You can still convey that without being so obvious about it.
Right.
You should still be within the tone of Star Wars, because this is not like other dark sci-fi series like 40K. Like, if this was 40K, you can expect a Dark Eldar to be doing some shit like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's off-screen.
In Star Wars, that's a no, because that's not what Star Wars was about.
Yeah. You can have stuff where it's like, you know, dude summons her to his bedchamber, and she goes there and she's all sad and crying, and she goes in the door and then later emerges and she's even more upset and all messed up. Or she walks slowly out of there, a little disheveled but clothed. Anyone can figure out what happened, but, you know, it's...
At least spare the kids it.
Presentation, I guess would be the deciding factor, because while this sort of thing can work, it's all presentation. I mean, is this necessary to convey that a certain character is evil, or are we just having it here to have it here? Like, in the example of, you brought up a Berserk with Casca and Griffith, that scene was very important because, one, it showed how messed up Midland was, but also it kind of defined Casca and Griffith's relationship. Griffith didn't show up and save Casca. All he did was give her the opportunity to save herself by pushing the guy off and giving her a knife. Now, what are you going to do? So, again, presentation, but also purpose. Well, what are we doing here? This scene here, is it just to have the scene, or are we learning? Is this facilitating something for one or more characters?
It doesn't really have much of purpose outside of just showing the female character. Yeah, this happened to me. It's more like the difference between dark versus edgy. Like, can you portray this in a way that isn't gratuitous? Like, why do you need to see a violent scene in a violent woman about to be raped in Star Wars?
Yeah. You could have just done a thing where she's really, really mad, and they ask her about it, and they did things to me, and the end. Enough said.
And you could just read between the lines.
There was a thread on Twitter that I saw that when they pointed it out that this had happened in Star Wars before, it was when Sabine had been captured by Death Company in Clone Wars. And they imply that stuff like that happened to her because of how disheveled she looks and things, and the way she acts, like reacts to being touched and things along those lines. It's one of those things, like I mentioned earlier, like when you're younger, all you're going to think is, oh, they were mean to her. When you're older, you're like, oh, God. You know? Well, not even torture. Like, as a kid, you're like, they were just being big meanies. But as an adult, you're like, yeah, big meanies. Kid, you don't know the half of it. You know?
Well, kid might even assume torture, because remember, they tortured Han Solo and they didn't even ask him any questions.
That is true.
So
which is also why...
for a kid to come to, yeah.
Admittedly, stuff like that is kind of why I don't buy the Darth Vader defense, because it's like, I trying to say that Vader was a moral guy at that point, it's a little much. But regardless,
hell of a stretch too. Jesus.
The thing about it, at least to me, is I think that with Star Wars, I'm of agreement that it is one of those things where if you look at it with the perspective that this is supposed to be at most PG-13, I'm in agreement. I don't really think that Star Wars necessarily needs to get that dark. I think that you can have dark elements in it, because there already are quite a few, but at the same time, I don't really think that you need to necessarily go to that degree. It's like Serena brought up Warhammer. Warhammer 40k is a really good example of that. Warhammer 40k is very grim. Very grim. People try to say it's not grimdark anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I like 40k separate from Star Wars, okay?
But the thing is, like, with 40k, like, if you read Aaron Dembski Bowden's Night Lords trilogy, or if you read the Carcharodon's books, or something like that, like, you look at that and you're like, whoa, this universe is screwed up. Because that's the point. It's supposed to be that way. Star Wars isn't really supposed to have that kind of a tone to it.
It's supposed to be hopeful. You're supposed to look at it and be like, okay, all right, this is fucked, but they can unfuck it.
Yeah, I don't get that from Andor. That's one of the big problems with this show. It just feels bleak for the sake of feeling bleak.
Sounds like somebody wanted to make another show, and the only property they had to work with was Star Wars. Kind of like somebody wanted to make 40k or Firefly, but all they had was Star Wars.
Fair.
That could be the case.
Star Wars has had that problem with some of its media before, where really somebody just wanted to make another movie, and all they had was Star Wars. They still tried to make it work. Marvel has the same problem as well.
Yeah, they want to tell other stories, but they want to do it with these pre-established properties, which, yeah, it's one of those things where it just comes back to the whole idea that at the end of the day, it's a contract job. You know, you're contracted to make something for an audience that's already there. And I can understand wanting to experiment. We were actually talking before we started the show today about how I had just watched Godzilla Singular Point, and how I talked about how they like didn't commit to the bit on some things. And it wouldn't surprise me if Toho's logic was that, well, look, we have Godzilla, there's an expectation for what Godzilla is, we don't want to get away from that. In which case, you know, fair enough, you take those ideas and you make something else out of it. In this particular case, I think that, again, I don't think that it really... I feel like if you wanted to have that level of maturity to it, to where it's one of those things where, again, it's implied but not blatant, I think that would have probably been the smarter way to do things, honestly. I think you because at that point you maintain your rating, you maintain the tone. It's one of those things where the adult pieces it together, but the young kid still gets to have their fun space fantasy, whatever the fuck. So, but at the same time, I'm also not of the opinion that you shouldn't necessarily have darker moments like that in Star Wars, because Star Wars can get fairly dark. It's just, keep in mind who your audience is. That's the big thing. Keep in mind who your audience is. Who do you write for? In this particular case, you're writing for a younger audience. So keep that in mind as you make it. Whereas, like, you know, if you were writing, like, somewhat, like, I mentioned, like, Aaron Dembski Bowden, who wrote the Night Lords trilogy, writes a lot of darker stuff for 40K. Someone like him, or Graham McNeil, or others like that. Like, if they were writing something other than 40K, they would probably tone it down quite a bit. So, regardless, yeah, I think we're kind of all on the same page on this. It's like, it's a little much. And
it feels a little much.
Yeah, it's just, know your audience. That's the big thing. Know your audience. All right. Let's go and move on to the next topic. So, Spider-Man. This is kind of a weird thing. So, in a recent issue of Spider-Man, which they got rid of Zeb Wells, he's no longer writing it, it's now some other guy, who apparently also isn't good. And his recent addition to the Spider-Man lore is having a scene where Peter and one of his friends, who I don't think it's Harry, but is they stole a porn mag from somebody, and
nice.
They're kind of getting their jollies off of the act, which has some Spider-Man fans going, that's not Peter Parker, like, at all. Which, to be honest with you, this is nowhere near as dumb or egregious as Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Because Paul sucks and is a self-insert, and it's terrible. But at this point, it really feels rudderless. I think that that's a really good term for it. Like, the best thing that people have for this is to try to basically go for shock value with Spider-Man. And I think to myself, why do we feel the need to do this? This is another know your audience thing. Like, why do we feel the need to do this with a established character?
Right? And it's just Who is editorial on this fucking thing?
I don't know, but they suck.
You don't understand. If Spider-Man doesn't do weird shit that I did as a child, that I can't relate to him.
Yeah.
I hate how true that is.
That has effectively been the mantra of a lot of the writers when it comes to this book. Because keep in mind, this character is over 60 years old now.
In the upcoming Spider-Man run, Spider-Man as a child will eat boogers.
Also, this feels way out of for Peter, given the fact that there's no way that Uncle Ben, who was still alive around this time, would be okay with Peter doing some shit like that. He would have scolded him immediately.
Well, assuming he got caught. But the whole thing is whether or not Peter would have actually done it in the first place. And that's the big thing. It's like Peter, as he has ever been written, has never come across like one of those kids that would act in such a manner. He was never really the troublemaker as a kid. He was always very reserved. He had one friend throughout his entire childhood, for better or worse. It was Harry Osborn. And
I think they confused Peter with Eddie Brock.
Yeah, because Brock would probably have done something like this as a kid. But the fact of the matter is that I genuinely wonder exactly why there isn't just a discussion amongst the writers where they just say, we got nothing. And I really feel like they need to just admit it at this point. Because we're at a point where they're losing Reddit. So for those unaware, for the last 9 years at this point, it's been 9 years since 2016, believe it or not. Which, God, I feel old. But in that time, if there was one place that always defended whatever Marvel was doing, rain or shine, it was Reddit. It's like clockwork. Reddit's not even defending this. They're like, this feels... And that's why I use the term rudderless. That's what a lot of them were saying. Because they're a hive mind, so they tend to come up with a word. But I'm always mystified by the idea that some people just aren't able to come up with ideas that are interesting in regards to a character like this. When in reality, there's a lot of fun things you could be doing with the character. A lot of interesting things you'd be doing with the character. But a lot of dudes are just not trying to push the envelope in a way that's really interesting. They're doing it in a way that they think is going to get clicks. But you don't sell comic books on clicks. You sell comic books on interesting stories. And this is the biggest problem that I really feel a lot of writers and in this day and age seem to not really understand. It's like, it's not about shocking people. You know, there's nothing wrong with having moments that make you go, oh shit. You know, like, did that just happen? But you want it to be something that drives the plot forward. Not just...
It's kind of like...
Go ahead.
It's kind of like what I mentioned earlier. I said, what are you doing with this? Like, okay, you've decided to include it. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, it's like, where is this going? And I don't think that they know where they want to go with the character. Because from everything that we have seen, a lot of what we have seen from Marvel is they basically said, you can't do this. You can't have Mary Jane and Peter be married. Not in the mainstream universe. Not allowed. You can't not include Miles Morales and stuff. You can't not... Like, Peter has to always be miserable. Peter has to always have bad things happen to him. Peter has to, like... It basically, like, you've been told, like, all this stuff you can't do. You can't have him succeed. You can't have him be awesome. You know, it's all this negative shit must always happen. That's it. And it's like... Well, what can you do then? And by saying all these things that he can't do, he's not allowed as a character to progress. He's been stuck in a state of sameness since the end of One More Day. The most exciting thing that he had is he was rich for 5 seconds, but not allowed to have that. Then they tried to give him Mary Jane back. Well, Joe Quesada got wind about that, so not allowed to have that. It's like, what do you expect this character to do? So this is my biggest beef with the character. I am of the opinion that at this point, you don't need a bunch of Spider-Man comics. You don't need to do this 3 comics in a month thing with Spider-Man, because they did this 20 years ago and it didn't really help then. It's not going to help now. What you need to do at this point is cut everything. Cut the current editorial for Spider-Man. Get rid of all of them. Cut all the writers writing on Spider-Man. Fire every single one of them. And you keep 2 books. You keep Ultimate Spider-Man, you keep Jonathan Hickman on it, you let him work his magic. And then you keep Amazing Spider-Man, because that's the franchise. You know, your Marvel Comics. You need Amazing Spider-Man. You know, it's just something that's necessary. And then you grab a writer that is new. Somebody that has new, interesting, exciting ideas, and you get rid of the idea that he can't be associated or partners with Mary Jane. He can't be, like, the idea he can't be married. You get all that bullshit from the Quesada era that needs to go bye-bye. You need to tell old Joe to get in his fucking retirement home. Stop letting that old fuck influence this shit. Because it still feels like he ghostwrites it. You need to get all that out of there. And let's start doing interesting things with him. Do you need to take him out of New York? Take him out of New York for a while. Let him move somewhere else. Put him in Chicago.
Actually,
put him in Miami.
Really?
Put him in California.
That would be a great idea for a story. What if your storyline is called Spider-Man on Tour, and for whatever reason, the Spidey's going cross country. Like, he's going to be visiting a couple different cities, doing a couple different things, just normal stuff. And he's getting wrapped up in local shenanigans because Chicago probably has superheroes and villains. We don't hear about them, but I bet they do. This would be a great chance to explore some.
Exactly. That's exactly
let's
what I'm thinking.
run into, Cloak and Dagger. Some people we haven't seen in a long time. Shit, let's find out. Let's go to a weird place in Montana and find out this is where Ben Reilly's been for fucking ever.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I really feel like that, like, just a simple thing like that could work magic with this character. Absolutely could work magic with him. It's just one of those things where I really feel like the interesting writing in the world of comic books just doesn't exist anymore. Like, we live in a world where there's a lot of creative people out there that are on the independent circuit now and are doing independent animation, doing independent comics, doing independent video games, stuff like that are telling these interesting stories that 20, 30, maybe 40 years ago probably would have been working in the comic book industry. And
I'd like to sum it up as all the people that right now that could possibly write good stories and potentially save Marvel Comics are doing better things with their time.
Yeah, pretty much. That's basically what I was alluding to.
I mean,
Because I'll be honest, like, if I was given different job offers from different companies to work outside of Grindstone, like let's say like a contract job, like I was given 3 offers to write a book. I was given an offer from Games Workshop. I was given an offer from Marvel. I was given an offer from Image to write Spawn. I would be looking at Spawn or 40K before I would even look at Marvel. Because I know for a fact that the way that Marvel, because they are so restrictive, they have ripped the rudder off the ship so that they can't go anywhere, but they don't realize that now the complaint is going to be, this isn't going anywhere. I would never want to work for a company like that. You know, I want to work for a company that has a direction. And because they don't have a direction for Spider-Man or the X-Men or anything like that, aside from just trying to impress people on Twitter, which doesn't sell comics, like it's effectively like trying to commit suicide by Nembutal. It's so stupid. So I don't get it, man. I really don't get it.
I would also consider what doing it would do to your reputation, because unless your book is like absolutely stellar in sales, which is going to be an uphill battle because how everyone feels about Marvel Comics anymore, most people are just going to remember that you wrote during this era.
Yeah.
Like, do you really want that on your resume? Like, yeah, I worked at Marvel during this era. We'll keep your resume in mind, and we'll give you a call.
Yeah, I genuinely believe that, yeah, writing for Black Library or writing for Image or something like that would be so much better for someone's resume, myself or anyone else, than it would be for to write at Marvel, because it just is. Unless you're the person that resurrected the brand, there is no way that you could potentially turn it into a positive. Because that's effectively what Jonathan Hickman is being known for right now. He's the guy keeping Spider-Man alive with Ultimate Spider-Man. That's it, And he was the guy that tried to do something new with the X-Men, and then Marvel fucked it up. But before that, he was the guy that wrote, in my opinion, the greatest Avengers story since the 90s. Because fuck Bendis. Because Bendis. So, like, unless they let you be that, you're never going to get anywhere. So, you guys have any other notes on this, or are we ready to move on to the next topic?
Yeah, no, unless they have they all I've ever heard of with regards to Spider-Man is what they're not allowed to do. And yeah, they basically put into a corner, and I don't know what you can do.
I have nothing to add. You pretty much summed up our thoughts, Micah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm great like that. I let myself have one brag per month. Because if I have any more than that, people get pissed at me.
I mean, fair.
All right. Final topic of the day. We're back to the graping. Oh, God. Okay.
Oh, God.
You
Fair
don't
enough.
hate journalists enough.
I mean,
speaking as a former journalist, yeah. Because I'll be honest. Anytime I've worked as a journalist, man, I hated most of my contemporaries. I really did. When I was a game journalist the first time around, when I was working for Blistered Thumbs, I hated most of my contemporaries. Like, hell, I hated half the people I worked with. I just was very nice about it. Then when I worked for Tech Raptor, I think I maybe remember one person's name. But I hated most of my peers. Absolutely despised them. When I worked in the MMA media, same thing. When I worked in politics, same thing. Like, I hated all my contemporaries because they're such fucking sniveling little snakes. And it's very, very annoying to see because they just do the dirtiest shit. And they do it for no good goddamn reason. So, there has been some interesting stuff going on in the world of VTubers. And last week we talked about the whole HoloLive thing. What the hell is going on over there? And I think we kind of said everything that could be said about it. But this one is more in the independent sphere. So, to set up the context, there is a erotic ASMR group that exists out there called Vallure.
Nice.
Very specific. So for those of you who are into the auditory thing, I guess they're your jam. But with this particular thing that happened is there was a bit of a controversy because a transgender writer who is a failed VTuber for Vice went after Vallure as a company because of the hypothesis that they would not hire the writer because the writer is transgender. Now, when you read the article, the accusations don't seem to hold a lot of water. Because you look at it and you go, well, wait a minute. Hold up. You don't have any evidence that they turned anybody down for being trans femme. So, male transitioning to female. You have no evidence of this. All you have is this quote where the question was asked on a live stream about whether or not you could audition for the company. That's it. That's all it was based on. And it was a hit piece. And not only was it a hit piece, it wasn't even a hit piece that tried to weave a narrative that made sense. Because generally speaking, hit pieces that have been effective, oddly enough, almost always have to do with sexual assault. Did you guys ever read A Rape on Campus?
No, but I know.
Wasn't that the Rolling Stone article?
Yes.
Yeah, the one where was it carrying the mattress girl, or?
I think Mattress Girl was a different one. I think that was the...
Was this the one that was made up?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, now I remember this now. Those boys were accused of rape, and it turns out that, there was no possible way this could happen.
Yep.
Is that one or the Duke Lacrosse team?
Duke Lacrosse was a different one. This one was UVA. It wasn't Duke.
I'm not gonna lie. This happens way too often.
It really does.
Yeah.
The fact that you're using an example and we're like, which one? And we don't know. That in itself is a problem.
Yeah.
It's awful, actually.
But yeah, the whole thing was a lie. But it was such a convincing story that it caused a big kerfluffle. But then we found out that it was bullshit. All of it was bullshit. The whole thing was made up.
Isn't that the reason why the Title IX reforms came down and basically created the college kangaroo courts?
I don't remember if that was the reason, but I think that it was a combination of a lot of these hoaxes that people were buying into. But we've had this before. But the thing with the reason that this Mattress Girl UVA hoax, or not UVA hoax, the Duke Lacrosse hoax, all of that got as far as they did, was because the writers were able to weave a narrative that was able to make sense. You could see it happening with the way things were being described. It's a trick, though, obviously. It's a trick. Get an axe. But, with this particular scenario, the writer couldn't even do that. It basically came across as you're transgender, you try to do this sort of thing that these girls do. You do not make money doing it. They do. You don't like that one of the characters is flat-chested. Which they try to say looks like a child, which it's like, it's played by an adult. I don't think that's the implication here. That's a hell of a leap there. You're leaping more at that point than Evel Knievel. You know? So they're basically trying to accuse them of being pedophiles or trying to appeal to pedophiles. Things along those lines, because apparently women are not allowed to be flat-chested, which that's just mean, honestly. Not to mention you're a male transitioning to female. Like that's even more cruel. Like you're not even born a woman, criticizing women for having different bodies than like having giant tits. Like fuck you, you know.
About that, I looked into this individual, and this person has a Kiwi farm thing back to 2019.
Let's not get to that yet. I want to build to that. So put a pin in that. We'll get that in here in just a second. So the response to the article was obviously very negative, because anybody who read it could tell this is a hit piece, this is nonsensical, and ultimately was messed up. This led to another VTuber named Kirsch Stahl doing her own response to it on a live stream. And that is where Kirsch brought up a certain thread. Serena, if you would please.
Finally. This person has a cute...
Sorry. I was almost there. Like, she's so mean to me. Come on now.
No, because I want to get to the thing.
Get to the thing then. It's your turn.
Hey, stop rushing. No.
Fuck.
So Anna Wings. I looked at this Anna Wings individual, and they have a Kiwi farm dating back all the way to 2019, where they basically just go around smearing and harassing people. It also turns out that this dude is also into like rape porn. Like he created like a thread on like a lesbian thread on Reddit, basically showcasing a female character being raped, and thought that would make that would make women, gay women on that thread, be interested in it. He also created a mod or some type of drawing or some shit of the Invisible Woman raped by Venom or something. And I also learned that this dude is a rampant AGP. His entire personality is just like obsessing over porn. Like he tried to do like what the Vallure girls did, but failed because no one was interested, and plus he doesn't pass. But he makes he calls himself like a gooner at one point in like an article or a thread or something. He mainly like drops the ball that he's an AGP, which is why he retaliated against the Vallure girls, because in case you don't know, AGP men hate women because they think themselves can be better women, and they are
you might want to tell the people playing the home game what AGP stands for.
Anagonophilia, a man who sexually gets aroused at the idea of himself as a woman. Basically, these types of men love to cross-dress because they pop boners to it. They love calling themselves trans even when they have no signs of dysphoria. And the dysphoria that they do have is literally like porn-induced.
Plus, they'll constantly like traverse all these forums and threads and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting gender euphoria." It's kind of gross, actually.
Yeah, gender euphoria is basically them getting turned on, and they love to like thirst post nudes and pictures of themselves. They love talking about sex. They make their entire personality about sex and kinks and stuff. And this dude is just one of many examples of AGP men who cannot stand the idea of being told no. Because, like, I think I feel it's basically just a form of sexual narcissism. And narcissists do not like to be denied in any way, shape, or form.
And that's effectively what the entire hit piece was about. Is they were under the impression that they were denied, and they were losing their damn minds about it. But Kirsch, for those who don't know, is a right winger, and another hit piece came out from this Vice writer about Kirsch and statements that were made by her on certain streams, pulling the statements out of context to make it seem like Kirsch is a racist. Now, I don't agree with Kirsch on a great number of things, especially some recent stuff, but that goes into politics, so I won't go there. But one of the things that was taken out of context was just her on a stream saying the phrase, "Brown people get out of here." Now, the context was she was playing Papers, Please, which is a game where you play as a communist in not communist Russia, called Arstotzka. What was it?
Glory to Arstotzka.
Arstotzka. That's it. Yeah. But you play as a communist at the border, turning people away for having the wrong passports. And it's for what little I played of it, it's a great game. But
it's fantastic.
But it's definitely one where, like, if you want to LARP as a douchebag communist, you can, and it's encouraged. But the whole game is actually an anti-commie video game, which is what I love about it. But regardless, the thing about it is that you can't one of the things you learn as a formally trained journalist, which I got lucky enough to learn from my father, who is also a journalist. Journalist and pastor. You don't really find combinations like that outside of, like, middle America. But my dad always taught me that context is king. And you learn that very early on, because if you do not put context into something, the meaning changes. And that's what happened to Kirsch. Here's an example. We have to separate the whites from the coloreds. Are you a senator from 1960s Alabama? Or are you sorting your laundry?
I mean,
context matters.
Not both.
You could be both. Yeah. You could, but regardless, it's one of those things where you can, if you remove context, like, you're effectively framing something as something that it isn't. And that's exactly what happened, which it's one of the dirtiest tricks in the book. So, the reason I wanted to discuss this is, it's basically, this is the problem that we have when it comes to online discourse. And also kind of an understanding of, or misunderstanding of, industries where gender does matter. So, I have a friend of mine who we used to be friends with benefits. And she was a stripper.
Nice.
And, yeah, so I actually did live that life where I have indeed banged a stripper. But she would like vent to me about how much it sucks and stuff like that, and she would rather be doing anything else. Which, when you hear stories about strip clubs, and I was a bouncer at a strip club for like a couple of nights at one point, and never again. It's just the sleaziest shit. Like, you understand, like, but the thing you understand is that it is an industry where you cannot ignore the baseline of what sexuality is on this planet. Men and women wanting to fuck each other. And what the sex industry does is almost all the fantasies play along those lines. That is who most most of the sex worker industry, what they play to. Men wanting to have sex with women in various different ways. That's it. You can't bring a dick to the party that a guy doesn't want there. Because the vast majority of men on planet Earth don't want any involved aside from their own. As Xavier unwraps a candy bar.
I'm opening a bag of popcorn.
Regardless. The fact of the matter is that, you know, sex work, it's going to have very specific audiences. And certain audiences are going to be more popular than others. A woman who caters to men going to probably have a lot of customers. You know, because most men on planet Earth are attracted to women and vice versa. The amount of men or women that are attracted to transgender individuals is very low. To the point where if you're going to form a business around this, you might not be able to make a whole lot of money. It's just the reality of the market. And you can't sit there and scream and rant and rave on a Vice article and think that you're just going to change reality. It's just not going to happen.
The other thing is, you know, marketability. Like, what part of you are you marketing? Are you marketing your personality for that experience? Are you marketing your attractiveness? Or are you marketing the fact that you're transgender?
Yeah, that's another element to it.
It's usually the former.
Yeah, in this person's case.
I think we have a person that just can't accept the fact that, no, they were turned down because they're an asshole.
It could just be that simple, honestly. But my point that I'm trying to make is just that Vallure as a company probably does not want to dive into such a niche that might not make them any money. Why would they want to give an investment?
Drive people away. I mean, especially if they sound kind of gross.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, again, it's such a specific market that is like barely exists. So, why would they want to invest money in that and possibly not see a return? It's not personal. It's not like they said "fuck you." What they're saying is that, like, that's just not a service that they want to provide. And by the way, they have the right to do that in the United States of America.
Right to association, it's called.
The energy of this. You guys remember Riley Dennis? That's what this reminds me of.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that asshole.
It's very like suck the dick, bigot, sort of like language that I get from this stuff. That's the vibe I get.
Yeah, it's basically very rapey insult language. Because the difference between trans and AGP and insults is very, very, very narrow.
It's like if Elliot Rodger wore a training bra.
Yeah.
It's just, man. The entitlement, I think, is the big kicker for me. That's the big one. You're not entitled to other people's attraction, and you're not entitled to anything along those lines. Like you like, some people just aren't. They can't do anything. Like, it's just the way that they are, and they have their reasons, and you can't try to force yourself on it. I can't make the world be into chubby white guys, much as I would like to.
Man,
you know?
That reminds me of the 2010s when people in the LGBT community are unironically pushing for conversion therapy.
Yeah,
right,
because you need to unlearn your sexual preference because you're a bigot.
Yeah,
right,
that was a
that's
very
bullshit.
fucked up movement.
Yeah, and they wonder why a lot of people are not particularly fond of them.
And then the our poor friend Gwen, she had to deal with that shit because she's a lesbian, right? And intersex individual, and had to deal with all those fucking AGPs trying to force her to be like, no, you're gonna suck the dick, bigot.
Yeah, it was absolutely wild, and you like the fact is that you can live your life however you choose. You have that right. And at the end of the day, you have to also keep in mind that people are also allowed to live their life however they want, and they don't have to cater to you. They don't. And the world does not owe you anything. And there are consequences to your actions. Like, these are things your fucking parents should have told you, you goofy bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I don't know. I think in this case they were expecting the vibe shift not to have happened, because this feels like a very 2010 sort of thing.
it really does. Like, that's kind of what I got flashbacks to. Because I think that they're... To close out the episode, I really do feel... Because this is something that... Like, I've talked with Lolly about it, and I've talked with some other people about it. There really does feel like there's a vibe shift. On several levels. Like, not only are people sick of people like this, trying to force their lifestyles on other people, people are also sick of, like, the over I can't say this without my teeth in. Politicization of society. People are just sick of it. It's like, I just want to have fun, dude. Shut the fuck up. And I feel like that's the biggest thing about this, is that the vibe has shifted. People just want to live normal lives. They don't want to have to cater to a bunch of weird shit that has nothing to do with them. And by trying to make them cater to your weird shit, they're just gonna fucking hate you. And now more than ever, people are ballsy enough to flat out say, shut the fuck up. Just stop talking. Like, and I'm glad, because that's always been the vibe I liked. It's sort of like, if there is a way that I like to live my life, it is just live and let live until somebody tries to mess with your vibe. For example, I was playing Space Marine 2's multiplayer mode, and some dude was just consistently bitching at some guy for not muting his microphone. It's kind of obvious dude bro did not have his headphones in. And now, but keep in mind, every multiplayer video game for the last, 15 years or more has had a thing where you can open up the player menu, scroll down to the person's name, click one button, and mute them. But the dude kept complaining and whining over and over and over again until I turned on my microphone and I said, shut the fuck up! Like, just fucking mute the guy, you jackass! Like, stop whining in my fucking ear, you pussy. Like, God, shut up! That is the general vibe, I think, of just everybody. Just telling people, just shut the fuck up about it. Like, just enough. We've had enough. People just want to live. Just let people live. But they will not do it. So, for this particular individual, I hope you stub your toe on everything. For how long? Yes.
I hope your pinky toe gets, at least once a month, gets intimately acquainted with the corner of the table leg.
Oh,
yes.
God.
Why are you such a bigot? Why won't you just let them to be together? Clearly, love is love.
God fucking.
Well,
God damn it.
I hope I hope the fucking coffee table loves your toes. Ugh, God. Folks, to close this one out, never be a journalist. just don't. Don't do it. Love yourself more than that. Don't do that to yourself, please.
Don't be a journalist. Be a YouTuber. It's a much more respectable profession. Strangely more profitable too.
Or a VTuber.
Yeah.
Get a model with big tits.
Goodness gracious. So, folks, I want to thank you once again for listening to us here on the Grind. It is kind of a weird episode, but I don't know if we have normal ones here. I don't know if that's a thing. So, regardless, when it comes right down to it, we appreciate everybody who listens to us. Of course, if you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate us on whatever platform you're listening to us on, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, or whatever the else. God, I'm an editor, I swear. But yes, wherever you listen to us, please give us that holy thumbs up. It helps us greatly. And hopefully we continue to grow the show. We got new comics coming as soon as well. I need to finish setting up Serena's campaign for Black Rhapsody Book 2. And yeah, should be fun stuff, to say the least.
Yay!
So, on that note, we're going to go ahead and bring this to a close for Xavier, Serena, and Mike. My name is Micah Curtis, the head of Grindstone Arts. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you guys next time.